Hey guys, what's up? It's been a minute, hasn't it? Well, in my time away, it's not been for no reason. Mostly college, I won't lie to you. But in my time off, I have been able to figure something out for you guys, and that is a little bit of Purrely. This won't be a comprehensive play this exact deck list kind of video, but it will help you understand how to play the deck and what I've learned from my time playing it. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, to start, we're gonna have three of both cats. There's no questions here. When you run out of cats in the main deck, you've pretty much lost the game, and so long as you've got one of these guys that you can summon somehow, you have a chance at winning that game. And then next we'll have three of the continuous, and I personally have liked three of the field spell. Now, you don't have to play it at three, you could just sit at two, but having the flexibility to grab it off of my friend whenever like on demand or just seeing it more often, whether it be in your opener, a draw, or off the Purrely, is really nice. With your end board, you want to see the field spell. You want to see Sleepy Memory that you use with one of these two to get into Little Noir, and then use another quick play spell that lets you go into grab the trap, and then you can attach the material, and then you'll pass. And if you have this up, then you get to attach another memory to that cat, so you can have a 2 sleepy or 3 sleepy memory on one cat, which is 3 draws, and then you flip the trap, and you've got 6 draws on that one turn, which is really powerful. Outside of that, Purrely Street is really good for breaking boards because it provides that protection for special summoned Purrelys the turn they're summoned. So if you're going second, this is actually a really good hard open because now any targeting effects that your opponent has cannot target your cats. So into Unchained, it's actually pretty good. Now, of course, that means this has to stay on board, but that's another thing that we'll deal with in a little bit. You could run it at 2, but I've liked it at 3. So now for all the quick play spells, surprisingly enough, anything we can run at 3, we're running at 3, and anything we can't, we're running at 1. The trap is something I'll get into in just a sec. But to start, yeah, 3 of all of the memories, except Delicious, because Delicious is at 1. You need to see them. They are your emergency teleports. And there's nothing too special you need to know about any of the memories. Happy Memory is the worst one to open by itself. Like, if you're going first, if you see only one memory, you'd prefer any of the other memories, because these 3? Yeah. These two, Sleepy and Pretty, both can be used in the draw phase with no cards on board, but Delicious and Happy, you have to have some cards somewhere on board. With Delicious, you need a monster, and with Happy, you just need there to be a card on board. So you prefer to see one of these two. And then personally, if there's one you want to see in hand, I would say Pretty Memory. So all of the memories have their main effect, and then they'll have a secondary effect. So the first effect, or the main effect for Pretty Memory, is that both players will gain 1,000. The main effect for Sleepy is the next damage you would take, battle or effect, is 0. For Happy, it's the first time a card would be destroyed from your turn onto your opponent's, or your opponent's onto yours. It will not be destroyed. And then Delicious, or by effect, sorry. And Delicious is same thing, but for monsters and battle protection. And then they all share the secondary effect to emergency teleport a Purrely from deck and discard a card. That is not as cost, so keep that in mind. So there's also, they have 3 effects, which is crazy, right? Because those are the effects of the actual cards when you use them, but then if they're under a Purrely XYZ, they'll provide you with another effect. So Happy Memory lets a Purrely XYZ attack multiple times onto monsters, up to the amount of Happy Memories. So you can get 4 attacks on the monsters in one turn, which is kind of crazy. Just because it can search, and then you can activate it again, and then attach and do it again and again. Sleepy Memory lets you, this is the one that during your opponent's standby phase, it lets you draw. And all of these are essentially soft. So for every copy you have under an XYZ, you'll get that effect multiple times. Except for Happy, I don't think that's how that works. Yeah, it's because this one Happy checks for however many Happy memories you have +1, not like each one gives you +1. It'd be crazy if it worked out like that. And then Pretty Memory, and I think this card in particular has an absolutely ridiculous effect that is not abused enough. Happy Memory lets you send one card you control, any card that you control as cost, and then you target one card your opponent controls, and you just attach it as a material. So this has a lot of really good applications, and I'll talk about some that I'm going to try to abuse in the future. But what this really means is, if there's a back row you don't like, you just attach it. Um, it's really good removal, and it also helps you make really big noirs very easily. And then as for the trap, you could run it too, but I'm working on making a go second build, and for go second, you're gonna want one memory because one Purrely leap, because opening two is kind of rough. It's not like dead per se because you can use it as a discard, but you'd rather see something better. And then to round out the cards you absolutely need, it's Pot of Prosperity. Currently I have two, should probably be running three, but that's where I am. So a few other cards to consider just in the main deck, generically, even going first, go second, any build. Like one of targets for your prosperity, or perhaps the second leap. If you plan on going first, this could be pretty good. But the deck tends to do better going second. It's going first part isn't bad. Don't get me wrong, but you'd rather go second most of the time. Talents is just a good card, and anything that gives you card advantage will be very helpful. And then using that, so say you prosperity for 6 and you already have a hand that's good, then you just grab the talents and you're telling them, well, if you draw me, I'm going to see your hand. And then you make your board that's good enough anyways. So that's what makes talents good. And this is really funny. So at the most regional I went to, that was Omaha last weekend, I was playing the Salmon Great player. This is after they got all their new support and stuff. And he had a really good board going on. He went full combo. I tried to show him the end board for Salmon Great, also known as an Abiru token, but he had cross out. So I was in a really rough predicament, and then I went Prosperity for Duster, and I cleared all of his back row because I think it's Spinny or something like that. It protects face-up Salmon Great cards. So his Negate and Pop were just gone. And then I was just able to play through his board and win that game. And it's a really powerful blowout card, and it's useful into or not Unchained, but it's useful into Labyrinth, and even Unchained in some cases. It's not like you want to pop their cards, but if you make them blow their interaction early, it's a lot easier to play through. Okay, so this next little portion is going to be the extra deck. So to start, let's get the cards that everyone is going to be playing, everyone and their mom's going to be playing. So that's going to be, I have 2 copies of Zeus and a Downard. I have a Slacker and a assembled Nightingale. You might really only need to play one of them. I just have 2 in because this was me getting the deck together as fast as I could. If I had to choose one or the other, I would probably say Nightingale because of its ability to just get in for some damage during, for time's sake. But Slacker is also really good, so don't sleep on Slacker. And then that's just your Zeus package. And then as for the Purrelys, I have 1 Plump, 1 Beauty, 2 Happiness, 2 Big Noir, and 2 Little Noir. You could probably cut Little Noir to 1, but as it stands, I've got it at 2. Another one of those things where if you have a preference for some of these cards, you could throw them in or take them out, whatever it be. And so that's 13 cards, and that's the total XYZ package there. So that gives us 2 slots to be left over, and so I have proxied. I'm sorry, guys, I just have to keep proxying. They kind of work. So this is actually IP Masquerena, and this is actually Sky Striker Azalea. Azalea is really funny for this deck because it just needs light and dark monsters, and then on summon you can just, I think it's send, but it could be pop a card on field, and then you can banish a spell to get another pop. So the value of proposition for Azalea is pretty insane, and then it just makes sense to play IP with that so that you can go from do it during your opponent's turn in particular. Other cards to consider: Little Knight when that comes out very soon in Ancient Guardians, and also the Relinquished Anima, the Link 1 that lets you take. It really rewards you for playing into really bad opponents, but it's also really funny when you resolve it. There's nothing too crazy with the extra deck for Purrely. You have to run your main engine guys, and then you're also going to run multiple Zeuses because, funnily enough, resolving 2 6-mat Zeuses in one duel tends to get it to end in your favor. Okay, so for this next portion, I would like to talk about what we could do with these non-engine slots for the Purrely deck, because what I showed you was not 40 cards, it was something short of it. And so I'm going to go through a few different strategies I have in mind, and hopefully they can get you thinking on how you would like to play Purrely. So if you're playing Go Second Purrely, then it's not a bad idea to play stuff like Dark Ruler, Evenly, Storm, just big blowouts that break your opponent's back. Evenly matched kind of feels bad because you do want your battle phase to make a big Zeus, But at the same time, if you're making a big Zeus, you could probably just make a big Noir instead, and it accomplishes about the same thing. And then this is really good because if you're going second and say you draw something like this in your hand, so long as you see one of the spells, it doesn't matter. You take all of your opponent's resources with evenly plus Dark Ruler because there's literally not a stronger combo in the game. And then with your spell, you'll just discard the Dark Ruler. So that's the pros, right? It's really good at breaking boards, and then you just play the advantage game with your opponent. The con is when they make you go first. Because surprisingly enough, these aren't good going first cards. But that's where we get back into the whole Purrely needs discards thing. It's not beneficial that you're discarding evenly or Dark Ruler, but it doesn't hurt you any. So you can afford to run go second cards just as coverage. If you're undetermined on how you want to play Purrely, then throw in some blowouts just in your list, regardless of if you want to go first or second, and there's some value to be had there. But the real con here is, say you're going first and you do get the full combo. You've made a little Noir, you have the trap, you've attached a Sleepy, so you're going to draw 2 and then draw another. You're drawing 4 cards on your opponent's turn. When you draw a Dark Ruler and an Evenly, that doesn't really do much for you. So while these are very powerful cards, you don't want to draw into them on your opponent's turn. And so playing a style like this, or playing cards like this, can be rather troublesome if you don't live through your opponent's turn there. Okay, so the next portion I'd like to talk about is the Lingering Floodgates, because these cards are just really good, whether you're going first or second. So at first, it kind of seems like Dimension Shifter would be a problem to play in the deck, but it really isn't that bad. You can drop Shifter and still go full combo and not even lose anything. The way you do it is you see a memory and you see a Purrely, right? So if you have, or sorry, Purrely. So if you have just Purrely, then you can do it no matter what, so long as you've got a memory. 2, it makes it really good. Because from Purrely, you reveal memory and you go up, and then anytime you use another memory, you can just attach it, so it's part of whatever exceed you make with the Purrely. You do lose the discard, and that will be banished, but if it's something like a hand trap, you never cared in the first place. Of course, you'd rather keep the hand trap, but that's for a different conversation. You wouldn't want this in all against all matchups, because some matchups it doesn't matter if they get shifted, right? You drop shifter on Flenderies and they thank you. But it does help into a lot of matchups. It also means you can't get drolled, which funnily enough is the other card I've mentioned here. So Droll is a pretty good card. I mean, it's on everyone's wish list for cards to be banned. And so, of course, it's good going second if you see it in your first opening 5. It doesn't help breaking boards, but it is a really good draw. So this is back to the whole, we're going to make the guy, the little Noir, and that's going to turn into big Noir on your opponent's turn, and that'll get you 4 draws. There aren't really many better cards to draw than Droll and Lockbird or cards adjacent. And so that's why we have the little pseudo floodgates here. All right, next we're just going to talk about generic hand traps. So I've got Mourner, Nib, and Ash. You could have Veiler, Imperm as well. This would be you're planning to go... You actually don't know. This is your really balanced strategy, right? Because these cards aren't particularly good for going first or second unless you open some of them. Like, specifically Imperm, right? If you go first, it's actually really bad to have Imperm in your list. Odds are you won't see it in your opening 5, but you'll draw it in the next 4, and then it doesn't do anything for you, and you've got a field spell or a continuous spell or both that are stopping you from just using it. Which actually makes Imperm pretty bad for Purrely, but it's a card you could play if you know you're going to lose a lot of die rolls, right? So the idea behind normal hand traps for Purrely in particular is that you have 4 draws, and there aren't better draws in the game than hand traps, right? So we're just playing some of the best coverage ones. At first, I didn't like Nibiru. I was thinking about it, I'm just like, well, why would I nuke my board, right? But one of my friends, he kind of pointed out that you don't have to use it early. You can burn all of your Noir, and then once they finally break your Noir, and then use the continuous spell to grab back 3 of the memories, then you can just nib them, and their entire turn just got burnt, and you're ready to go off on the next turn. Plus the nib token's light, so that makes you make Azalea, which I think is just hilarious. Or nib is light as well. Um, yeah, there's not too much else about it. These are just really good draws, so it's a really balanced game plan. I think if you're dealing with a very wide array of decks, then this might not be a bad strategy. Though I don't think it plays into the strengths of Purrely very well, where it's just break their board, heavy and centric. But yeah, next I would like to talk about actual floodgates. So this array of cards is not going to make much sense to start. But it turns out these cards actually don't really affect Purrely all that much, and I'll explain how. So what we have here are just floodgates that make it hard for your opponent to play. As a Purrely player, you wouldn't want to be under anti-spell fragrance or deck lockdown. They don't let you draw, they don't let you search, and deck lockdown doesn't even let you summon from deck. But it turns out there's a lot of decks in the format that want to do that. So if you know you're going first, flipping a floodgate isn't actually the worst thing ever. And then but the only problem is when it comes back to your turn, what are you gonna do? And this is where Pretty Memory is actually insane. I mentioned it earlier, I was alluding to it, but the card reads as so, just as a little bit of a refresher. It gives an XYZ Purrely that has it as material the effect to send one card you control in order to attach a material your opponent has. And guess what you could send? As cost, and that's why I mentioned the cost earlier. You can send these floodgates, so you can flip over anti-spell so your opponent can't use these power spells to get back in the game, and then when it's your turn, you just send it away, and you can play. So this is true for literally every floodgate, even skill drain, because it sends as cost. Well, except Mystic Mind type ones where it says you can't activate. So that's where the theory with just floodgates goes. It's like, if you know you're going first, it might not be the worst idea ever to play floodgates like these. And whether or not it's Tikaboo, Rivalry, Gozen, whichever one you prefer or is best for your locals or regional or whatever format you're going into, you could choose. And I think it's really funny. It's something I'm toying around with, and it's something I've had varied success with. There are some turns where me resolving deck lockdown literally won me the whole game. I was playing a Flanderese player at the Omaha Regional, and I resolved a deck lockdown, and he couldn't play. I got rid of it, kind of played, but I couldn't kill him. I happened to have a droll at this point, so I make him pass again. Still can't kill him, but I drew into another one of these, so I just activated, and they can't play under this. And there's a lot of decks that want to summon from deck. What's it called? Labyrinth, right? Labyrinth wants to summon from deck, and so does Purrely. In the mirror, this kills. And so finally, I'm just going to do these last two pairs of ideas together. So first is this is like almost good. So this is like you're trying to outbrain your opponent, if you really want to think about it like that, where you're able to get just targeted negation for what your opponent has. Things like Imperm and Chalice could help there. I don't know if it's perfect, but if you're going into Unchained, it's not exactly bad to have an Imperm or a Chalice for their Unchained Soul of Rage or for the Negate Special Summon guy. I'd have to do more, more thinking on whether or not these are worthwhile to play, but there's certainly something you could do if, again, you don't know if you're going first or second. Having the ability to just use Imperm as either a hand trap or a board break is actually really good, and what makes Impermanence probably the best individual hand trap. And it has been for a while, though people may claim Ash, and I'm not going to lie, Ash is still very good. Impermanence, having that availability to be a board breaker or a hand trap, is just really powerful. And then the last little bit here is just other cards you should be aware of are Crossout and the Crossout targets. I've got Book of Moon and Barrier. You could also add Eclipse to this list of cards. And any of the hand traps like Droll also are pretty useful as Crossout targets. I'm not a fan of Crossout. I'm a big Crossout hater. I played it with me at Omaha, and there were a lot of hands where I'm just like, man, great, I just drew into two Crossout. What am I going to do with it? It's just sitting here. And then instead of hand traps, that would have been nice. And I was playing a go first build, so it just felt really rough. Don't get me wrong, it'll be very powerful when you set one and your opponent goes Book of Moon and you flip Crossout, call Book, or you're trying to go second, and they flip the D barrier, you call D barrier. In cases like that, it's very good. I just did not have the luck of that when I was playing at Omaha. And then the last parting thoughts I had, so I'm driving back home after work, and I was thinking about interrupted kaiju slumber, and not for the reasons you may initially think. So many people, when they think of interrupted kaiju slumber, is that it's going to be this blowout because it's a dark hole, and then you summon two kaijus. But I was thinking about it. Purrely has a lot of discarding, right? So if you discard the interrupted kaiju slumber, and then banish it to search for a kaiju, is that not just so much better? It's still ashable, don't get me wrong, but you're searching for a non-targeting kaiju as opposed to a dark hole. And so that's something I'm gonna test out this weekend if I can get the cards. Is interrupted kaiju slumber and then three kaijus, right? Because discarding kaiju slumber going second sounds insane. Yeah. Anyways, that's what I've been doing this last real week and a half, and I wish I could say there was more I was doing, but no, I've been really engrossed in college. Being a math major is not easy, let me tell you. But regardless, I appreciate the concern that there is in like the comments. You guys actually kind of make this doable. I don't know any of you guys, which is kind of not a surprise, but looking at my videos and seeing how people actually are appreciating and watching them, it gives me the desire to keep doing this. So I'm very thankful for that. Um, and well, I'm gonna keep cooking, guys. See you next time.
While in courses, you might notice some talking flowers. Get close and...
I'm over here stroking my dick. I got lotion on my dick right now. I'm just stroking my shit.